The Velkari Empire had ruled half the galaxy for 300 years. Every species that met them learned the same lesson: surrender or die. The Velkari did not negotiate. They did not compromise. They came to a world, delivered their demands, and waited for submission. Those who refused were destroyed completely. Their planets became dead rocks floating in space, stripped of air and water. The Velkari used bioships, massive living vessels grown in organic vats. These ships could eat through a planet's atmosphere in days. They could drain oceans and consume forests. The Velkari had perfected the art of total destruction. Hundreds of civilizations had fallen before them. No one had ever won against their fleets. Humanity had watched all of this from the edge of known space. Earth's governments decided to stay quiet and build in secret. For 50 years, human engineers worked on a single project. They called it the UHS Retribution, and it was the largest warship ever constructed by human hands. The ship stretched 5 kilometers from bow to stern. Its hull was covered in reactive armor that could absorb almost any hit. Inside, weapons waited that the galaxy had never seen before. Captain Daewon commanded the Retribution. He was 42 years old and had spent his entire adult life in Earth's Navy. He was not a man who smiled often or spoke more than necessary. His crew respected him because he was fair and he was smart. When Daewon gave an order, people followed it without question. He had trained for this ship since it was just blueprints on a screen. Now he sat in the captain's chair, waiting for the moment when Earth would need him. That moment came on a cold morning in March. A Velkari ship appeared at the edge of Earth's solar system. It was not a warship, just a courier vessel. The ship broadcast a message on all frequencies, demanding that human leaders meet with a Velkari representative. Earth's government agreed. They sent Ambassador Jiwan to handle the negotiations. Jiwan was 50 years old and had been a diplomat for 25 of those years. She had negotiated treaties with 12 different alien species. She knew how to stay calm under pressure. She knew how to read body language and tone. Most importantly, she knew when someone was lying to her. The Velkari were about to make a huge mistake by thinking she would be easy to intimidate. The meeting took place on Earth's largest orbital station. The station hung in space above the Atlantic Ocean, a ring of metal and glass that housed 10,000 people. The conference room had windows that looked out at the blue planet below. Jiwan sat at a long table with 3 other human representatives. Across from her sat the Velkari emissary, a creature named Thulmar. Thulmar was tall and thin with gray skin that looked like dried leather. His eyes were completely black, no white showing at all. He wore robes made from some kind of metallic fabric that caught the light. When he spoke, his voice came out in a raspy whisper that translator devices turned into flat, emotionless words. Humanity will provide 30% of Earth's resources annually, Thulmar said. He did not ask. He stated it like it was already decided. This includes minerals, water, and biological material. Velkari ships will arrive every standard cycle to collect. This arrangement will continue indefinitely. Jiwan listened without changing her expression. She let Thulmar finish completely before she responded. And if we refuse these terms? Thulmar touched a control on his wrist. A holographic display appeared above the table, showing footage of 3 different planets. The first was a world covered in purple vegetation. The second had blue oceans and white clouds. The third showed red deserts and green forests. Then the footage changed. All 3 planets appeared again, but now they were dead. Gray rocks with no atmosphere. Lifeless. These civilizations rejected Velkari rule, Thulmar said. This is what happens to those who refuse. You have 1 standard cycle to decide. Choose wisely. The Galactic Council watched the meeting through a live feed. The Council was supposed to maintain peace and order in the galaxy, but everyone knew they were powerless against the Velkari. Council Representative Mornval observed from his ship. He was a floating creature, something like a jellyfish made of light. He had seen this same meeting play out dozens of times with other species. They always surrendered. There was no other logical choice. Jiwan stood up slowly. She walked to the window and looked down at Earth. The planet turned below her, beautiful and alive. She thought about her daughter, who was starting university in Seoul. She thought about her parents, who ran a small restaurant in Busan. She thought about the 8 billion people who called Earth home. We refuse your terms, Jiwan said. Her voice was steady and clear. You will leave our space within 12 hours. If you return, you will be destroyed. The room went completely silent. Tulmar stared at her like she had spoken in a language his translator could not understand. The other human representatives remained calm, their faces showing nothing. They had all agreed on this response before the meeting started. You do not comprehend what you are doing, Tulmar said. His voice rose slightly, the first emotion he had shown. The Velkari Grand Armada will come. Your world will burn. 12 hours, Jiwan repeated. She walked back to the table and sat down. The meeting is over. Tulmar left the station without another word. His courier ship jumped back to Velkari space within the hour. Council Representative Mornval immediately sent a message to Earth's government, begging them to reconsider. He sent statistics showing how many ships the Velkari controlled. He sent projections of how long Earth could survive under assault. The answer came back in 2 words: we stand. Far from Earth, hidden on the dark side of the moon, the UHS Retribution powered up its reactor core. Captain Daewon received the authorization codes directly from Earth's military command. His tactical officer Hyunwoo began running final checks on all weapon systems. Chief Engineer Subin monitored the reactor, making sure the massive fusion core was stable. The crew of the Retribution numbered 3,000. They came from every nation on Earth, the best and brightest that humanity could produce. Many of them had families back home. All of them knew what was at stake. If they failed, Earth would die. There would be no second chance. Daewon sat in his chair and watched the main display. It showed Earth, small and fragile against the black of space. He thought about why he had joined the Navy 30 years ago. He thought about the oath he had taken to protect humanity. Now that oath was being tested in the most extreme way possible. All systems ready, Captain, Hyunwoo reported. Weapons hot. Shields at full power. Navigation standing by, said Taeyoung from her station. Engineering optimal, Subin confirmed. Reactor at 100%. Daewon touched a control and opened a channel to the entire crew. This is the captain. The Velkari have threatened our world. They believe we will surrender like all the others. They are wrong. We are going to show them what happens when they threaten Earth. We are going to show the entire galaxy that humanity does not bow. Battle stations. 3,000 voices responded as one. Yes, sir. The Retribution moved away from the moon, its massive engines pushing it toward Earth. The battleship that would turn planets to wastelands was ready for war. The Velkari were coming and they had no idea what waited for them. The Velkari did not believe humanity was serious. They thought it was a bluff, some desperate attempt to buy time. Fleet Commander Rathkor received orders from the High Command to make an example of Earth. He was to destroy their orbital stations first, then begin harvesting their oceans. The message was clear. Humanity needed to learn their place. Rathkor commanded 50 bioships, each one the size of a small city. These vessels had conquered 20 star systems in the last decade alone. Their organic hulls could regenerate from damage. Their plasma weapons could melt through solid rock. Rathkor had never lost a battle in his 30 years of service. He did not expect Earth to be different. The Velkari fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel near Earth's moon. They positioned themselves in a formation that had been perfected over centuries of warfare. The bioships spread out, creating a wall between themselves and Earth. Each ship began charging its weapons. The energy signatures were so strong that every sensor in the solar system detected them. Rathkor broadcast a message across all human frequencies. His translator made his words cold and final. Your defiance ends now. We will take your water first. Watch as your oceans boil away. Then we will harvest your land. Your species will be relocated to labor colonies. This is mercy. The High Command wanted total extinction. Be grateful. On Earth, billions of people watched the sky. They saw the Velkari ships hanging there like angry red stars. Some people panicked and tried to flee the coastal cities. Others simply waited, trusting that their governments had a plan. In military command centers across the planet, generals watched their screens and prayed that the Retribution was everything the engineers promised. Captain Daewon stood on the bridge of the Retribution, watching the Velkari formation. His ship had been hidden on the dark side of the moon, invisible to their sensors. Now he gave the order to move. The massive battleship came around the lunar horizon, and for the first time the Velkari saw what they were facing. The Retribution was different from any warship in the galactic database. Human engineering had created something that mixed raw power with elegant design. The hull was dark gray, almost black, covered in armor that seemed to drink in sensor scans. Weapon ports lined every surface, hundreds of them. The ship moved with surprising grace for something so massive, its engines pushing it forward without visible thrust. Rathkor stared at the human ship on his display. He had seen thousands of different vessel types in his career, but this was something new. His tactical officer ran scans and reported that the human ship's energy output was off their measurement scale. The weapons appeared to be kinetic and energy-based, not biological like Velkari systems. Most troubling was the ship's size. It was nearly as large as his entire command vessel. "One ship," Rathkor said to his crew. "They send one ship against our fleet. Their arrogance will be their death." On the Retribution, Tactical Officer Hyun-woo had already locked targeting solutions on all 50 Velkari vessels. The ship's artificial intelligence had calculated firing patterns, shield strengths, and optimal impact points. Everything was ready. All he needed was the captain's word. Daewon looked at the enemy fleet on the main display. He thought about the 3 dead worlds Thulmar had shown Ambassador Jiwon. He thought about the billions of people on Earth watching this moment. He thought about what would happen if he failed. Then he stopped thinking and gave the order that would change everything. All weapons free, fire. The Retribution's main railguns fired first. These weapons used magnetic acceleration to launch tungsten projectiles at impossible speeds. Each round was the size of a small car and traveled at a fraction of light speed. The kinetic energy they carried was enough to vaporize a city block. 6 rounds left the railguns in the first 3 seconds. 6 Velkari bioships exploded. The destruction was instant and complete. The tungsten rounds punched through the organic hulls like they were paper. The bioships' regeneration systems were useless against this kind of damage. The vessels simply came apart, their biological components exposed to space and dying immediately. Debris spread out in expanding clouds of frozen tissue and shattered bone. Rathkor could not believe what he was seeing. 6 ships gone in 3 seconds. His tactical officer was shouting about weapon velocities that should not be possible. The rest of the fleet began to panic, their formation breaking as commanders tried to understand what was happening. "Return fire," Rathkor ordered. "All ships concentrate on that vessel." The Velkari fleet opened up with everything they had. Plasma weapons discharged, sending superheated streams of energy toward the Retribution. Biomissiles launched, carrying organic warheads designed to eat through armor. Energy beams lanced out, weapons that had destroyed 1,000 enemy ships. All of it hit the human battleship at once. The Retribution's shields absorbed everything. The energy barrier around the ship flared bright blue as it dispersed the incoming fire. Not a single shot reached the hull. Chief Engineer Subin monitored the shield generators from her station, watching as they operated at only 40% capacity. The Velkari weapons were not strong enough to threaten them. "Shields holding easily," Subin reported. "No damage. Continue firing," Daewon said calmly. The railguns fired again. 3 more Velkari ships exploded. Then the Retribution's missile batteries opened up. Hundreds of missiles streaked across the space between the 2 forces. These were not simple explosives. Each missile carried a plasma warhead that burned hotter than a star's surface. They struck the bioships and carved through them like cutting torches through flesh. Rathkor watched 12 more of his ships die. He was a veteran of 100 battles, but he had never seen destruction like this. His fleet was being taken apart piece by piece, and they could not even scratch the enemy vessel. He made a decision that would have been unthinkable an hour ago. He ordered his ships to scatter and retreat. The Velkari formation broke completely. Ships turned and tried to flee in different directions. It was a standard tactic when facing overwhelming force. Split up and make the enemy choose which targets to pursue. Some ships would escape and carry word back to the High Command. But Rathkor had not counted on human technology. "They are attempting to flee," Hyun-woo reported. "Don't let them," Daewon said. "Activate point defense. Target their engines." The Retribution surface came alive with thousands of small laser turrets. These weapons were designed to shoot down incoming missiles and fighters. Against the fleeing bioships, they were just as effective. The lasers tracked every vessel automatically, firing in precise bursts. The bioships' engines exploded one after another, leaving the vessels drifting and helpless. The railguns finished the job. The remaining Velkari ships were destroyed methodically, none of them getting more than 50,000 kilometers from their starting position. The entire battle lasted 8 minutes and 17 seconds. 50 Velkari bioships destroyed. Zero human casualties, zero damage to the Retribution. Wrathcore's command ship was the last one left. The fleet commander sat in his throne, staring at the screens showing nothing but debris. His entire fleet gone, his reputation destroyed. He reached for the communication controls, intending to beg for mercy. Then his ship exploded as a railgun round tore through the bridge. On Earth, people watched the battle through every telescope and sensor they had. When the last Valkyrie ship exploded, the planet erupted in celebration. Cities that had been silent in fear now roared with joy. People danced in the streets. Strangers hugged each other. Humanity had faced the Valkyrie and won. In the Galactic Council chamber, Representative Mornval floated in shocked silence. He had watched species fight the Valkyrie before. They always lost. Always. But these humans had destroyed a Valkyrie fleet without taking a single hit. It should not have been possible. The entire galaxy was about to learn that humanity played by different rules. Captain Daewon stood on the bridge of the Retribution and watched the debris field spread out before him. He felt no joy in the destruction, only a grim satisfaction. The Valkyrie had come to Earth with threats. They had promised to turn humanity's world into a wasteland. Now their fleet was wreckage and the message was clear. Send a transmission to Valkyrie space, Daewon ordered. Tell them this: you came to our home. You threatened our people. This is what happens when you threaten Earth. Leave us alone or we will come to your worlds next. The transmission was sent across the galaxy. Every species that monitored communications heard it. The Valkyrie High Command received it and called an emergency session. They had never been defeated before. They had never been threatened. They did not know how to respond. But they knew one thing with absolute certainty. Humanity was not like the others. Humanity had teeth. The news of the fleet's destruction reached the Valkyrie High Command 3 hours after the battle ended. Supreme Leader Krelvor received the report while sitting in his throne chamber, a massive hall carved from a single piece of black stone. He read the message twice, certain that there had been some mistake. 50 ships could not be destroyed in 8 minutes. It was impossible. Krelvor had ruled the Valkyrie Empire for 40 years. In that time, he had conquered 18 star systems and subjugated 37 different species. He had built the Grand Armada from 200 ships to over 500. No one in the galaxy could match Valkyrie military power. The idea that humans, a species barely known beyond their own solar system, could challenge him was absurd. He called his military advisors into the throne chamber. They came quickly, 12 Valkyrie commanders who had spent their lives in war. Krelvor showed them the battle footage that Wrathcore's ship had transmitted before its destruction. They watched in silence as the human battleship tore through the fleet like it was nothing. This cannot stand, Krelvor said when the footage ended. The other species will see this as weakness. They will think the Valkyrie can be beaten. We will assemble the Grand Armada, all 500 ships. We will go to Earth and burn it until nothing remains. The commanders agreed immediately. They began sending orders across Valkyrie space, recalling ships from every territory. The Grand Armada would take 2 weeks to fully assemble, but when it did, no force in the galaxy could stand against it. Or so they believed. On Earth, Ambassador Jiwan addressed the Galactic Council. The Council had called an emergency meeting after the battle. Every major species had representatives present, all of them wanting to understand what had happened. Jiwan stood before them, her image projected across thousands of light years. The Valkyrie came to my world with threats, she said. They showed us footage of planets they had destroyed. They demanded we surrender our resources or face total annihilation. We refused. When they attacked, we defended ourselves. This is our right under galactic law. Council Representative Mornval spoke next. His translated voice sounded uncertain. Ambassador, the Council recognizes your right to self-defense. However, the Valkyrie will not stop. They will bring their full military force against Earth. We have seen them do this before. Please, reconsider. Accept their terms. It is the only way your species will survive. No, Jiwan said simply. We will not surrender, and we will not wait for them to come to us again. The council chamber erupted in confused voices. Species from across the galaxy tried to understand what the human meant. Not wait? What other option was there? Jiwan explained. The Velkari have committed war crimes across this galaxy for 3 centuries. They have destroyed entire civilizations. They have turned living worlds into dead rocks. You have all watched and done nothing because you were afraid. We are not afraid, and we will not wait for them to attack Earth again. We are going to them. On the Retribution, Captain Daewon had already made the same decision. He stood in the war room with his senior officers, looking at a holographic map of Velkari space. The Empire controlled 73 star systems spread across 200 light-years. At the heart of that space was Velkari Prime, their homeworld and the location of their largest shipyards. We cannot fight 500 ships at once, Hyunwoo said. He was studying the tactical data on the Velkari Grand Armada. Even with our weapons, those odds are too much. Then we do not fight them all at once, Daewon replied. We go to their shipyards and destroy them. No shipyards means no new ships. No new ships means the Velkari cannot replace their losses. We cut out their ability to make war. Navigation Officer Tae Young plotted a course on the display. Velkari Prime is 14 jumps from here. We will need to pass through 6 systems that have Velkari patrol fleets. Each system has between 20 and 50 ships. Can we avoid them? Daewon asked. Chief Engineer Subin answered. We have stealth systems that the Velkari have never seen before. If we run silent and stay away from their sensor buoys, we can slip past most of their patrols. It will take longer, but it is possible. Then that is what we will do, Daewon said. We jump in 6 hours. Prepare the ship. The crew of the Retribution began final preparations for a journey into enemy territory. They would be alone, thousands of light-years from Earth with no support and no backup. If the ship was damaged or destroyed, no one could save them. But they had trained for this. Every person on board knew the risks and had volunteered anyway. Daewon went to his private quarters before the jump. He sat at his desk and wrote a message to his sister, who lived in Incheon with her 2 children. He told her he loved her. He told her to be proud of what Earth was doing. He did not tell her where he was going or what he was about to do. If this mission failed, she would learn about it the same time as everyone else. The Retribution jumped to faster-than-light travel at exactly the scheduled time. The massive ship slipped into the layer of reality where normal physics did not apply, where distances could be crossed in moments instead of years. Navigation Officer Tae Young guided them through the first jump perfectly. They emerged in an empty system 3 light-years from Earth. The journey to Velkari Prime took 6 days. The Retribution moved from system to system, staying away from inhabited planets and busy trade routes. Twice they detected Velkari patrol fleets nearby. Both times the stealth systems worked perfectly. The bioship's sensors could not detect the human battleship. It was like they were invisible. Scanner operator Minji monitored all communications traffic in the systems they passed through. She heard Velkari commanders talking about the destroyed fleet near Earth. They were angry and confused. Many of them did not believe the reports. How could one ship destroy 50? It had to be human propaganda. On the 4th day of travel, they passed through a system where the Velkari had recently conquered a species called the Thorn. The Thorn homeworld was visible on the scanners, its surface covered in massive strip mining operations. The Velkari were harvesting the planet's resources, just like they had promised to do to Earth. Refugee ships were fleeing the system, carrying the few Thorn who had managed to escape. Captain, Minji said quietly, the Thorn are broadcasting distress calls. They are asking for help. Daewon looked at the scanner data. There were 5 Velkari bioships in orbit around the Thorn homeworld, coordinating the mining operations. He could destroy those ships easily. He could save those people. But it would alert the Velkari to his presence. It would compromise the mission. We keep moving, Daewon said. His voice was hard. We cannot help them if we are destroyed. The best way to save species like the Thorn is to destroy the Velkari's ability to make war. That means the shipyards. The Retribution jumped away from the system. Minji saved the recording of the Thorn distress calls. She did not say anything, but Daewon knew what she was thinking. They all were. How many species were suffering under Velkari rule right now? How many could they save if they stopped to fight? But Daewon knew the hard truth. If they tried to fight every Velkari fleet they encountered, they would eventually be overwhelmed. The mission had to come first. Destroy the shipyards, cripple the Velkari war machine. Then Earth could send more ships to help the others. On the sixth day, the Retribution emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Velkari prime system. The shipyards were immediately visible on the scanners, massive orbital structures surrounding the Velkari homeworld. These yards produced 50 new bioships every cycle. They had been operating for over a century. The Velkari believed they were untouchable, protected by their homeworld's defense fleet. Daewon studied the tactical display. The defense fleet consisted of 200 bioships positioned around the planet in overlapping formations. The shipyards themselves were protected by energy shields and point defense weapons. It was the most heavily defended location in Velkari space. Send a message directly to Velkari Prime, Daewon ordered. I want Supreme Leader Krelvor to hear this personally. The communication officer opened a channel. Daewon stood and spoke clearly, knowing his words were being recorded and would spread across the galaxy. Supreme Leader Krelvor, this is Captain Daewon of the UHS Retribution. You came to my world with threats. You promised to turn Earth into a wasteland. Now I stand at your world. I am here to deliver a message. Surrender your military forces. Disband your empire. Free the species you have enslaved. You have 1 hour to comply. If you refuse, I will destroy your shipyards and turn your fleet into debris. This is your only warning. The transmission was sent. On Velkari Prime, Krelvor received it in his throne chamber. He listened to the human's words and began to laugh. It was a harsh, grating sound that echoed through the hall. One ship, one single alien ship dared to threaten him at his own homeworld. The arrogance was almost admirable. Send the defense fleet, Krelvor ordered. Destroy that ship. Bring me the human captain's body. I want to display it in the main square. 200 Velkari bioships began moving toward the Retribution. They came from all directions, surrounding the human battleship in a sphere formation. This time the Velkari were certain the humans would die. They had no idea they were about to learn the true meaning of humanity's fury. Supreme Leader Krelvor watched from his throne chamber as the defense fleet moved into position around the human battleship. 200 ships against one. The odds were overwhelming. The human captain had made a fatal mistake by coming here. Krelvor would make sure every species in the galaxy learned what happened to those who challenged Velkari power. The throne chamber had viewing screens that showed real-time footage from the fleet. Krelvor watched the bioships form a perfect sphere around the Retribution. Each ship was positioned exactly where it needed to be. The formation had been practiced thousands of times. It was designed to create a kill zone where the target would be hit from every angle at once. Nothing could survive inside that sphere. On the Retribution, Weapons Officer Hyun Woo studied the enemy formation with a smile. He had hoped the Velkari would do exactly this. By surrounding the human ship, they had actually made his job easier. Every weapon on the Retribution could fire now. There was no angle that did not have targets. It was perfect. Captain, they are charging weapons, Hyunwoo reported. All 200 ships. They will fire simultaneously. Let them, Daewon said calmly. He sat in his chair, his hands resting on the armrests. He looked completely relaxed. Wait for them to fire first. Then show them what human weapons can do. The Velkari fleet commander gave the order to fire. 200 bioships discharged their weapons at the same instant. Plasma streams, biomissiles, and energy beams converged on the Retribution from every direction. The amount of energy being thrown at the human ship was enough to vaporize a small moon. Velkari commanders watched their screens, waiting to see the human vessel come apart. The Retribution's shields flared so bright they were visible across the entire system. The energy barrier around the ship absorbed the incoming fire and dispersed it as harmless radiation. Chief Engineer Subin monitored the shield generators, watching the power levels drop to 80% capacity, still well within safe limits. The Velkari weapons were not strong enough. Shields holding, Subin reported. No damage. Return fire, Daewon ordered. Target their reactor cores. Make it quick. The Retribution began to rotate slowly on its axis, bringing every weapon system to bear. The railguns fired first, their tungsten rounds crossing the distance in fractions of a second. 6 Velkari ships exploded immediately. their organic reactors torn apart by kinetic impacts. Then the missile batteries opened up, launching hundreds of plasma warheads. The missiles wove through space, each one guided by the ship's artificial intelligence to a specific target. The Valkyrie formation began to collapse. Ships exploded one after another as the human weapons found their marks. The bioships tried to return fire, but their shots were weak compared to what the Retribution was throwing at them. It was like insects attacking a tank. The energy shields did not even flicker. The Retribution's point defense lasers activated next. Thousands of small turrets tracked every remaining Valkyrie vessel, firing in coordinated bursts. The lasers were designed to shoot down missiles, but they worked just as well against ship armor. They carved through organic hulls, cutting deep into critical systems. Bioships that survived the railguns and missiles were torn apart by laser fire. Supreme Leader Krelvor watched in growing horror as his defense fleet died. Ship after ship exploded on the screens in his throne chamber. He had sent 200 vessels against one, and they were losing. No, not losing. They were being slaughtered. In 3 minutes, half his defense fleet was gone. In 4 minutes, 3/4 were destroyed. In 5 minutes, only 20 ships remained. "Pull them back," Krelvor ordered. "Retreat to the shipyards." But it was too late. The remaining 20 ships tried to flee, but the Retribution's missiles were faster. They caught the bioships before they could escape and destroyed them. Debris began raining down on Valkyrie Prime, burning up in the atmosphere like shooting stars. For the first time in 300 years, the Valkyrie homeworld was under attack. Captain Day-Wan did not give his enemy time to recover. "Target the shipyards. I want those facilities completely destroyed." The shipyards orbited Valkyrie Prime in 3 massive rings. Each ring contained dozens of organic vats where bioships were grown. These vats were enormous, some over 1 kilometer long. Inside them, ship tissue was cultivated over months or years until it reached maturity. The Valkyrie had perfected this process over centuries. It was the foundation of their military power. The shipyard's defense systems activated automatically. Energy shields snapped on around each vat. Point defense weapons began tracking the human battleship. These defenses had never been tested in actual combat. They had never needed to be. No enemy had ever gotten this close to Valkyrie Prime. Chief Engineer Subin had been studying the shipyard defenses during the battle with the fleet. She had found something interesting. The shields were designed to protect against Valkyrie weapons, which used biological energy patterns. Human weapons were entirely different. They used kinetic force and pure plasma, completely outside the parameters the shields were built for. "Captain, their shields are vulnerable to our weapons," Subin reported. "I have already identified the frequency patterns. I can bring them down." "Do it," Day-Wan ordered. Subin's fingers moved across her console, sending out electromagnetic pulses tuned to specific frequencies. The shipyard shields flickered and failed, one section after another. The Valkyrie engineers on the stations tried to restore power, but Subin was faster. She had complete control of their systems within seconds. The Retribution's main railguns locked onto the shipyard vats. Hyunwoo calculated the firing pattern carefully. He wanted to destroy every vat in the most efficient way possible. The targeting computer finished its calculations and displayed the solution. Hyunwoo entered the final command. "Firing," he announced. The railguns discharged in sequence, one shot after another in perfect rhythm. Each tungsten round hit its target with devastating accuracy. The organic vats exploded in brilliant flashes of light. Bioship tissue that had been growing for years was vaporized instantly. Genetic material that the Valkyrie had refined over centuries was destroyed. The vats ruptured, spilling their contents into space where it froze and died. The first ring of shipyards was gone in under a minute. The second ring lasted slightly longer because it was further away. The third ring tried to move, activating emergency thrusters to escape. The Retribution's missiles caught them before they could get far. Within 10 minutes, 300 years of Valkyrie shipbuilding capability was reduced to wreckage. Krelvor stood in his throne chamber, staring at the screens that showed nothing but debris and fire. His defense fleet was destroyed. His shipyards were gone. The foundation of Valkyrie military power had been torn away by a single enemy ship. He felt something he had not experienced in 40 years of rule. Fear. "Evacuate the planet," Krelvor ordered his advisors. "Send word to the Grand Armada. Tell them to come here immediately. I want that human ship destroyed." On the Retribution, scanner operator Minji detected massive energy signatures across Velkari space. The Grand Armada was mobilizing, jumping toward Velkari Prime from a dozen different systems. 500 bioships were converging on this location. They would arrive within hours. "Captain, the main Velkari fleet is incoming," Minji reported. "Estimated arrival time is 4 hours." Daewon considered his options. He could stay and fight 500 ships. The Retribution was powerful, but those odds were too much even for human technology. Or he could leave now, return to Earth, and claim victory. The shipyards were destroyed. That was the mission objective. But then another contact appeared on the scanners. Something much larger than any bioship. Minji enhanced the image and her blood went cold. She recognized what she was seeing from intelligence reports. Every species in the galaxy knew about it. Most thought it was just a legend. "Captain," Minji said quietly, "the Velkari are bringing the World Eater." The World Eater appeared on the main display. It was a moon-sized construct, a massive sphere covered in weapons and harvesting equipment. This was the Velkari's ultimate weapon, built over 200 years from the cores of dead stars. It could strip a planet of its atmosphere in hours. It could crack continents with its graviton beams. No civilization had ever survived once the World Eater was deployed against them. The construct jumped into the Velkari Prime system, emerging just 1 million kilometers from the planet. It was accompanied by thousands of smaller ships like a planet with its own fleet. The Velkari had brought everything they had. They would destroy the human battleship here and now, no matter the cost. Supreme Leader Krelvor watched the World Eater arrive and felt his confidence return. Yes, the human ship was powerful. Yes, it had destroyed his fleet and shipyards. But nothing could stand against the World Eater. Nothing. The humans would learn that some weapons could not be beaten by technology alone. Captain Daewon studied the massive construct on his display. It dwarfed the Retribution by a factor of 50. His tactical officers were already running calculations and the numbers were not good. Hyunwoo turned to look at him, waiting for orders. Every person on the bridge knew they were facing something that might be beyond even their capabilities. "Captain, we should jump away," Tae-young said. The World Eater hung in space like a dark god, its surface covered in weapons that had ended civilizations. The construct was so large that it generated its own gravity field. Ships orbited it like moons around a planet. Inside its core, ancient, star matter provided power that would last for thousands of years. The Velkari had built it as their final answer to any threat. Nothing in the galaxy could stand against it. Supreme Leader Krelvor stood in the World Eater's control center, having evacuated there from the planet. Around him, dozens of Velkari. Operators monitored systems that controlled unimaginable destructive power. He looked at the human battleship on the main display. Such a tiny thing compared to the World Eater. The human captain had been brave to come this far, Krelvor admitted. But bravery meant nothing against this weapon. "Target the human ship," Krelvor ordered. "I want it vaporized. Do not give them a chance to escape." The World Eater's graviton projectors began charging. These weapons could manipulate gravity itself, creating forces that crushed matter at the molecular level. They had cracked moons in half during testing. A single ship, no matter how advanced, would be torn apart instantly. On the Retribution, Captain Daewon watched the World Eater power up its weapons. Scanner readings showed energy levels climbing to dangerous levels. Chief Engineer Subin was working frantically at her console, redirecting every available bit of power to the ship's plasma lance. The reactor was already running at 110% capacity, higher than it was designed for. "Captain, the World Eater is charging its main weapons," scanner operator Minji reported. 30 seconds until they can fire." "How long until our plasma lance is ready?" Daewon asked. 2 minutes, Subin replied. Her voice was tight with stress. "The weapon needs time to build up charge. If we fire before it is ready, the beam will not be strong enough to penetrate that thing's armor." "Then we need to buy time," Daewon said. He turned to his tactical officer. "Hyunwoo, launch everything we have. I want those support ships destroyed. Keep the World Eater's attention divided." The Retribution's missile batteries launched their full payload. Hundreds of missiles streaked toward the World Eater, each one guided by sophisticated targeting systems. The smaller ships orbiting the construct moved to intercept. using their own weapons to destroy the incoming missiles. Explosions filled the space between the two forces. The World Eater's graviton projectors fired. Invisible beams of twisted gravity reached out toward the Retribution, trying to grab hold of the battleship and crush it. Navigation Officer Tae Young fired the maneuvering thrusters at maximum burn, throwing the ship into a hard turn. The graviton beams missed by less than a kilometer, passing through the space where the Retribution had been moments before. "Keep us moving," Daewon ordered. "Do not let them get a lock on us." Tae Young's hands flew across her controls, executing a series of evasive maneuvers that pushed the ship's engines to their limits. The Retribution twisted and turned, dodging graviton beams that could tear it apart. The massive battleship moved with surprising agility, dancing through space like a fighter craft. But every dodge brought them closer to the World Eater's support fleet. The support ships, smaller vessels designed to defend the World Eater, opened fire with plasma weapons. The Retribution's shields absorbed the hits, but the constant barrage was draining power. Subin watched the reactor levels climb higher as the shield generators demanded more energy. They were at 120% now, well into dangerous territory. "Plasma lance at 50% charge," Subin announced. 1 minute remaining. Weapons Officer Hyun Woo targeted the support ships with the railguns, destroying them one by one. Each shot had to count, because they needed to conserve power for the main weapon. The support fleet began to scatter, trying to avoid the deadly accurate fire, but there were too many of them and they kept coming. The World Eater fired its graviton projectors again. This time, 3 beams converged on the Retribution's position. Tae Young saw them coming and knew she could not dodge all 3. She made a split-second decision, steering the ship directly toward the World Eater instead of away from it. The graviton beams missed, their firing solutions based on the assumption that any sane captain would try to escape. "We are heading straight at it," Minji said, her voice tight. "I know," Daewon replied. "The closer we get, the harder it is for those graviton projectors to track us. They are designed to hit targets at long range. At close range, we have the advantage." The Retribution accelerated toward the World Eater, its engines pushing it faster and faster. The support ships tried to block their path, but Hyunwoo's railguns cleared a corridor through them. Explosions bloomed on either side as the battleship charged forward like a lance aimed at a giant's heart. Inside the World Eater's control center, Valkyrie operators shouted warnings. The human ship was too close. The graviton projectors could not depress their angle enough to target it. The construct's point defense weapons activated, thousands of automated turrets trying to shoot down the approaching battleship, but the Retribution's armor was too thick. The defensive fire bounced off harmlessly. "Impact in 30 seconds, a Valkyrie operator announced. "Pull us back," Krelvor ordered. "Move the World Eater away from that ship." But the World Eater was not designed for quick movement. It was too massive, too slow. The construct began to move, its engines straining, but it was like trying to dodge a bullet when you were a mountain. The Retribution was simply too fast. On the Retribution's bridge, Subin watched the plasma lance charge reach 100%. The weapon was ready. The entire ship trembled as massive amounts of energy built up in the firing chamber. The plasma lance had never been tested at full power. The engineers had theorized it could punch through any known armor, but theory and reality were different things. "Plasma lance fully charged," Subin announced. "Target their core," Daewon ordered. "Right where the star matter is stored. If we hit that, the reaction will tear the entire construct apart from the inside." Hyunwoo locked the targeting system onto the exact center of the World Eater. The artificial intelligence calculated the optimal firing angle, accounting for the construct's movement and armor thickness. The solution appeared on the display. The shot window was only 3 seconds long. "Firing solution locked," Hyunwoo reported. Daewon looked at the World Eater filling their view screen. He thought about Earth, so far away. He thought about his sister and her children. He thought about the 8 billion people who were counting on him to protect them. This was why the Retribution existed. This was why humanity had spent 50 years building a weapon that could stand against the galaxy's darkest threats. "Fire," Daewon said. The plasma lance discharged. A beam of superheated plasma, contained by magnetic fields and accelerated to near light speed, lanced out from the Retribution's bow. The beam was so bright it lit up the entire system. It crossed the remaining distance to the World Eater in a fraction of a second. The beam hit the World Eater's armor and punched through it like it was not there. Layers of reinforced hull that had taken decades to construct were vaporized instantly. The plasma lance carved deeper, burning through support structures and systems. It reached the core where ancient star matter was stored, contained by gravity fields that the Velkari barely understood. The gravity containment failed. Star matter, compressed to impossible density, suddenly released its energy. The reaction was immediate and catastrophic. The World Eater's core exploded with a force that registered on sensors across the entire sector. The construct's internal structure could not handle that kind of energy. It began tearing itself apart from the inside. Supreme Leader Krelvor watched in horror as his control center disintegrated around him. Alarms shrieked. Operators tried to reach escape pods, but there was no time. The World Eater was dying, and it would take everyone inside with it. Krelvor's last thought was that he had ruled the galaxy through fear for 40 years. Now he understood what real fear felt like. The World Eater exploded in a blast that was visible from Velkari Prime's surface. 200 years of construction, countless resources, and the concentrated effort of an entire empire gone in seconds. Debris spread out in an expanding sphere, the remains of the galaxy's most feared weapon scattering across space. The Retribution's shields protected it from the blast wave, but barely. The energy surge overloaded several systems and pushed the reactor into the red zone. Chief Engineer Subin worked frantically to bring everything back under control. Smoke filled parts of the ship as circuits burned out. But they had survived. The battleship was damaged, but intact. Captain Dewan sat in his chair, breathing hard. His hands gripped the armrest so tight his knuckles were white. Around him his crew was silent, trying to process what had just happened. They had destroyed the World Eater. The weapon that had terrorized the galaxy for 2 centuries was gone. "Captain, incoming transmission from the Velkari Grand Armada," the communication officer announced. "They are requesting to speak with you." Dewan straightened in his chair. "Put them through." The main display showed a Velkari commander. The creature looked old and tired. Its black eyes held no anger, only resignation. When it spoke, its translated voice was quiet,